Hello, my lovers. Thank you for tuning back into the channel. If you're new, welcome. I wanted to take this video as an opportunity to talk about some of the videos that you might see if you're getting into watching cycling YouTube. There are a lot of videos out there that are questioning, like, is the industry in trouble? Is the industry struggling? And some of the struggles that have to do with the cycling industry. Before I continue, I do want to make a distinction between the bike industry and just regular cyclists. People who are tuning into this channel are most likely just the average person who wants to ride a bicycle and get outside. That has nothing necessarily to do with the bike industry in and of itself. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the industry and some of its inherent difficulties that I think will always be there unless our system as a whole changes. To make this issue plain and simple, one of the biggest problems is just capitalism in general. Capitalism is anti-bike community. It's not good for cycling. It always focuses on the newest, latest thing, subscription models, things that keep you paying and buying more and more and more. Bikes are simple, they're elegant, they're freedom machines, but there's a problem, and that's capitalism. And the bike industry kind of knows it. Cycling is one of the most sustainable and efficient forms of transportation in an urban center. But why are we always making these videos about the industry struggling? One of the first problems with bicycles is that they're durable. They last for a long time. You don't need to upgrade them every year. A well-maintained steel frame can last you in excess of 30 years or longer. So that's already going to be a growth-obsessed economy. Unlike smartphones or cars, bikes are easy to repair, and they're often modular. Parts from third-party brands can fit together thanks to universal standards. Tools are relatively cheap, there's no dealership required, no certified mechanic required. Capitalism thrives on obsolescence. Bikes defy that. There are a lot of innovations in the bike industry that are really cool. Electronic shifting, through-axle frames, gravel bikes, e-bikes. A lot of these are really awesome, and for some people, these upgrades are totally welcome. But for the average person who bought a bike when they were young, you get used to the technology that you're riding, and there's no real reason to change it. You're not necessarily going to be much faster on a newer bike. It just depends on the rider. So for the purposes of competition, innovation is always going to be welcome. But for the average person, most people just don't actually care that much. Another problem for the cycling community, I feel, is there's some unnecessary gatekeeping, and there's the feel of elitism that I get from cycling, and that at least I got from cycling when I was an adult. When you're a kid, it seems like bicycles are for everyone. But as you get to become an adult, it's almost like if you're not wearing the Lycra suits and the cycling gear and the clip-in pedals, that you're not a real cyclist. And the problem is that it doesn't really matter. Like, cycling should be just woven into the everyday activities of life, as opposed to, an elite thing that you do for fitness. So now we have, $7,000 mountain bikes. We've got the Tour de France. We've got Red Bull videos. We've got carbon fiber frames. All of those things are cool. I mean, don't get it twisted. I love my gear, and I love watching the videos of the most extreme cycling that exists. And those things are objectively good for the algorithm. They get people to tune in to cycling, but it doesn't necessarily get someone inspired to want to cycle. When I see Red Bull videos of people doing 360 flips, I'm in my 40s. There's no way I'm going to do that, right? I'm never going to be able to do something like that. But I could ride down a nice, lovely trail and get outdoors. I could go pick up my groceries. I could go take the family out on a lovely ride on a nice day. Those things aren't as cool to make videos about. Just quite frankly, you're not going to get as many views. You can build up a following and have people, follow your biking lifestyle. But I put this on the industry to really try to reach out to regular people, regular types of bikes, hybrid bikes, gravel bikes that can kind of do a little bit of everything so you can get around the city. Luckily, those segments, gravel bikes and e-bikes, are growing in popularity. But also, I feel like there's some elitism about riding an e-bike. I think some people look at e-bikes as like cheating or not real cyclists. But based on my opinions of this channel, that doesn't matter. The whole goal is to ditch the car and get outside. And anything that does that is heading the industry in a better direction than it would be otherwise, saying that cycling is only for this small, narrow band of people to enjoy. Thankfully, YouTube has a bunch of creators that are able to make a full-time occupation just appealing to regular people. So I'm going to talk about a few of the people that helped me when I was trying to look into getting back into cycling and trying to look for my bike. Some of these channels were some channels that really inspired me to be like, hey, these are just regular people who ride as part of their lifestyle. They're not necessarily competitive people, but they're just trying to inspire people to get outdoors and trying to give people options for affordable bikes. And so some of the people that inspired me were channels like The Path Less Pedaled, Maddie Active, Katie Kookaburra, The Bike Farmer. These are some channels that I watch that really appeal to like regular people and address the issue of these are not cyclists that wear regular style clothing. Katie Kookaburra wears cycling gear, but you can see how she's wrapped that into her lifestyle in terms of she talks about how she came from a place where she was overweight and just looking for a way to get outside. And this was something that helped her just got on a bike and just started enjoying the outdoors. Path Less Pedaled is a non-competitive cycling channel. Also, The Bike Farmer, he works on old school bikes. And again, my love of 90s bikes, these things are going to last you a long time. Maddie Active is someone who really tries to push affordable bikes because we're trying to reach other communities that theoretically, there should be more people in marginalized communities that want to do cycling because it's a great way to get around town. But there isn't necessarily always that. And so seeing these channels was definitely an inspiration to me, whereas I do like the athletic side and the ultra competitive side of cycling, but it just doesn't get me inspired to want to ride myself. So seeing regular people make these YouTube channels, and that's probably why I'm making videos right now, really inspired me to just find a regular bike just to get around the city, really appreciate commuting, picking up groceries, picking up my kid, going on outings with the family. And so there are channels out there that are really trying to help out regular people. I also think that there are some companies now that are starting to catch on. If you've watched my channel, you know that I really am an advocate for Poseidon bikes because I was able to get my Poseidon X flat bar for $550 shipped to my house. And I think, again, knowing what I know about bikes, that's a bike that can last me 20, 30 years if I keep riding. The Poseidon Redwood, last I checked, was in the $550 range for a through axle mountain bike style gravel bike, a monster gravel bike that can be configured to have 700C and 650B wheels. And these are, if you save your money or are willing to make payments over time and you're committed to riding regularly, these are really, really affordable bikes. Even Walmart is getting into the game. When you see bikes like the Ozark Trail or the Ozark Slalom, these are solid entry points for people just getting into cycling. And like we talked about earlier, because of the third-party parts that you can configure to your bikes, you can upgrade these over time where you're not having to spend like $1,500 right away. Even though, for if you have a regular job and you're willing to ride regularly or use it as a form of transportation, that's really not a high price, especially when you consider the price of gas, cars, car maintenance. And these are affordable, they're accessible, they're fun. You can go down trails. Again, you're not going to be able to necessarily do the most gnarly things that you see on a Red Bull video, but for the average person, they're more than enough to get you going. It's not just one thing that's the issue. If you marketed cycling to regular people, I think it would be a domino effect of more regular people riding, more people would be aware of, hey, we need infrastructure because the average person doesn't want to ride in traffic. And that can be prohibitive to a lot of people who are getting into cycling, is that they don't want to ride next to cars. And so the more people that rode, the more people that you could advocate for better infrastructure in the city to get around. Biking infrastructure has been proven to be safer for the average pedestrian, for the average car driver, for the cyclist. So it's just an overall boost in public health. But without the knowledge of the bikes and the cycling culture, it would be hard to advocate for those things. It would seem relatively abstract. So I think all of those things work together. And it's, thankfully there are channels that are helping boost that awareness. But I think it needs to be an industry-wide effort mixed with people who are advocating for those things for regular people, for their friends and family. So there are examples of cities around the world that have biking infrastructure that really encourages people to get out on their bikes. And I may talk about it in more detail in another video if that's what people are interested in. But some of the cities in across the world that have some great bike infrastructure. Some of the best is Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark, in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, Utrecht in the Netherlands, Berlin in Germany, Strasbourg in France, Portland out here in the Pacific Northwest, Bogota in Colombia, Tokyo, Japan, Barcelona, Spain, and Montreal, Canada. These are examples of cities that have really helped with infrastructure around cycling to make the average person cycle to work. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, and the stigma of someone who you're either riding a bike, a fancy bike, or you're someone who just couldn't afford a car. But it wasn't until I moved to Seattle that I realized there are people who can afford cars but just prefer to ride bicycles. Their cars are sitting there in the driveway and they use them if they need them. If there's, they have a big grocery trip and they can't carry everything on their bike or something. But they would just let their car sit there and ride bikes. And it was the first time in my life where I actually had a car, but I didn't use it unless I really, really needed to. And that was like revelatory to me to see people who, like, when you grow up in LA, like your car is like a symbol of status in a way, like, to the point where you would never ride your bike to the bar and go get a drink at the bar because they'd be like, who are you? But then you see channels like Tim Fitzgerald where he's like, yeah, we rode our bikes to the brewery, we're riding our bikes everywhere. And that was just unheard of when I grew up. So part of it is just like with the explosion of YouTube and me just actually moving to a different part of the country, I saw a different side of that. Whereas in LA, again, like I said, like if you rode your bike to the brewery, someone would be like, oh, poor you, what happened to your car? And not realizing that there are people out there who are like, I don't want to drive my car. And the more I grew up, I got my license later in life, in my late 20s, in my mid 20s. I was about like 23 when I got my first car. And I don't like driving. Like I mean, it's a necessary thing you have to do to get to work, but I'm not necessarily one to get in my car. I don't like driving on the freeway. I don't really like, I mean, who likes being in traffic, right? And so it's things like that you don't even realize until you start riding. You're like, wow, this is way better. I really didn't think about it. And so it really took people who are into cycling to get me to that level in my life where now I'm like, if I don't have to go for work, that car is never leaving the driveway. And I wasn't like that before. It was like car first. I mean, LA was ridiculous. You would literally get in your car and drive 2 blocks. I mean, it was not a joke, to the point where you're spending more time looking for parking than you are actually commuting to the place. And that's really common. And so, I started to learn within a 5-mile radius, if you factor in traffic and parking, within 5 miles, bikes are actually faster than cars in terms of getting out your door, getting to the place, locking your bike up and just going straight in. And especially, when you're waiting for a bus, right? You just get on the bike and go. Those things you don't realize until you actually start experiencing it, that they're actually kind of just better for your lifestyle. Like it boosts mental health to like not sit in traffic. Like sitting in traffic in LA was just such a killer, and it just kills your life and it kills your happiness. And so, just being able to get out in the doors, and also especially in the Pacific Northwest, it forces you outside. Even when the weather is not ideal, it makes you just be used to going outdoors where, if it starts to get a little cold or a little dark or a little wet, you're just going to sit inside and vegetate all fall and all winter. But it forces you to get out of the house. And so there are so many benefits to your lifestyle of ditching the car. And I get it. Some people can't commute to work, and that is what it is. But if you're able to do all the other things, make little grocery store runs, go to your local brewery, go to the bar or something like that, make your fun trips on your bicycle, it can really help build that culture. And especially if you're a little kid and this is your first access to a vehicle, it almost seems like, why wouldn't you encourage like a young person who's in school, who can ride their bike to school, to do that? It's such a healthy way to gain your independence. And so that's part of my video, just talking about bike advocacy. And that's what this channel really is about, trying to get people out on the road on their bikes and get out get outdoors. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment, anything that you have that helps people get out on bikes or your experience with cycling. I'd love to hear it. Talk soon.